You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Rays podcast. My name is Ulises Sambrano, and on behalf of Kevin Weiss, who you will see on this episode, we are the hosts of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every day. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. We are getting up there in numbers. I believe we're around 1,700 subscribers, which is pretty neat. So make sure that if you haven't hit that subscribe button, that you do, and hit that like button. Why not? h-vac is telling you to do so. Why wouldn't you? And if you haven't joined us on YouTube, make sure to do so, because we have a little bit of fun with the visual aids here. And I know that our YouTube comment section is always buzzing, and it's always a really good time to meet other Rays fans and talk about what we like the most, which is the Tampa Bay Rays, who just come back from a winning road trip, going 5-4, stopping in Atlanta, then Minnesota, and then finally Pittsburgh, getting series wins in the last two cities, in Minnesota and Pittsburgh. They'll come back home. They'll have a 3-game series. But before we get to all of this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB, all lowercase, LOCKEDON MLB, for a first deposit match of up to $100. So yes, they remain a good road team, this Rays team. They're 19-17 when they're playing on the road. They'll have a 3-game series against the Mariners with a noon game on Wednesday. And there's 6 games left in the month of June. Guess what? The Rays have been a 500 team in June, 10-10. So with 6 games left to go, it would be really nice for the remaining month of June to get a little bit on the winning side, more than usual, and start to get some momentum, because it has been kind of a 500, maybe a little bit below, maybe a little bit above 500, but they've never really been able to get that separation from that 50-50 line. So hopefully they do that. We have a unique show today. Got to come up with a name for these types of episodes. I don't know if it's a split show, if it's a double header, perhaps. I need your suggestions on the YouTube comments on what to call these eps when we have me and Kevin, or Kevin and I rather, on the episode together, but separate, alone together. So if you have a suggestion on what to call these episodes, please leave it down in the comment section. So on Monday episodes, we have a takeaway from the weekend, and mine is pretty simple. Josh Lowe is getting hot, people. Josh Lowe is getting hot, and he's getting hot at the right time. I believe with Josh Lowe, you have the potential there to have not only a 20-20 guy, but he could develop into a 30-30 guy. I mean, he is just a complete ball player. If you look at his numbers this year, I think one of the biggest, increases in a bad category would be the K rate. He's been K'ing more than last year. Last year he had a 24.8% K rate. This year's at 27.6. So he's striking out a little bit more. But when you look at everything else in totality, he's been hitting the ball harder than last year, and he has the same exact by a point or two expected batting average on fastballs than last year. And last year he killed him. This year he's not getting the results, but the peripherals say that if he keeps doing what he's doing, it's gonna come out, and the results are going to be there. So a little bit more patience with Josh Lowe, more line drives this year and less ground balls than last year. And if you look at his last 7 games, again, he's getting hot at the right time. He's hitting .375 in the last 7 games. He's got a slugging of .833, an on base of almost 500 at .444, 3 jacks. He looks really good. And in this series against the Pittsburgh Pirates, he showed out, and he showed what he can really do when he's on. It has been missing this year, that type of Josh Lowe. Like we were talking about him possibly being one of those guys that can be a starter every day, like a Randy Arozarena, like a Yandy Diaz, like a guy that you can pencil in most days. And that hasn't been the case, usually just because of the injury that affected him a couple of times this year. You know, remember he had to miss sometime in the beginning of the season, and then as soon as he got back on the IL. But again, everything seems to be trending in the right direction. Not only the more line drives and less ground balls, he just looks a little bit healthier out there. The only bigaboo that I can kind of be worried about, and I don't know, you guys can tell me in the comment box if that worries you or not, is the steep decrease in sprint speed. I have a theory, and I'm sure that many of you have that as well, but the sprint speed going from the 89th percentile to the 85th percentile, and now this year to 74th percentile. That is a really big jump. I mean, 89th to 85th, okay, and, you know, you can say that's a little decrease, and that's fine. But 85th to 74th, that's a big jump. Either people around him have all gotten incredibly speedier, and so by default he has gone down on the percentiles, which that hasn't been the case, or he's just a little bit slower this year. I think it's the latter. And my theory is the oblique strain. Now, we haven't, you know, if you follow baseball for a long time, you know that whenever you have an oblique strain on a player, you hear that it saps your power, right? I mean, it makes sense with all that torque that goes on with a hitter at the plate, and how many swings they have to take per day. I mean, around like what, hundreds of swings, 150 swings they take a day. I mean, it can be a pretty daunting number that they take. So is that something that could also affect your speed? That right oblique strain? Could be. I've never had an oblique strain, but maybe some of you have, and if so, you can leave it down in the comments and say what your experience has been. But really, that's been intriguing for me to see that the power seems to be there, but at least this weekend it certainly was. But the speed going down that steeply does kind of worry me a little bit. But again, he looks good. He's getting healthier. I think with him getting hot at this time could really help this team kind of separate themselves, because right now they're stuck in that in-between ground. They're tied with Houston in the wild card standings, 38 and 40. You know, I know people have some people have already been on the sell everything on the Rays front. You know, they're talking about Brandon Lau and Randy Arozarena and Yandy Diaz and Zach Eflin. And I understand that. I think the Rays have a chance here for the next 20 games. Basically a calendar month, to show the fan base, to show the front office who they truly are. Fan duel.
Yes, that's what makes the games worth watching and fun nowadays. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more, and you can bet on it all at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 that you can use to bet on everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Visit FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON. That's locked on. And add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, they are America's #1 sports book. I'll repeat it again. FanDuel.com/LockedOn, LOCKEDON. Baseball season is moving right along, and you can make some cash on some Rays performances over on PrizePicks. Maybe it's a stolen base by Jose Caballero once he gets back from his flu-like symptoms, a home run by Isaac Paredes, or a hit by Yandy Diaz. Take your pick of more or less and add them to your PrizePicks entry today. You can turn $10 into $100 with just a few taps. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is really simple to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry in under 60 seconds. So again, get in on the action with PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB for up to $100 match on your first deposit. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy.
Because it is no longer early. It is no longer early. And it's no longer early-ish. Okay, like we are past that excuse that we have used as Rays fans. Like, oh, it's early. We can still. Is there plenty of baseball left? 100% there's plenty of baseball left. Of course there is. You know, they've played, what, 78 games. So there's definitely enough baseball to be played. That doesn't mean that it's early. It's not early, but there's plenty of baseball left. So now we've moved on. At least in my head, I think we've moved on to a new segment of the season. They have about 20 games, in my opinion, where they can really change their fortune and they can really change the perspective of what 2024 is going to be, how the front office is going to act. That's Kevin Weiss. So let's see. Let's see what they can really do because, you know, even if these next 20 games go either just like the season has gone, where they go 50-50, or if they notice a deep drop in the standings, I still don't think that the Rays front office is going to elect for a fire sale. I just don't see that happening. I could be wrong, but I just don't see that happening for the Rays. Either if they go 50-50 or they drop in the standings. Now, that doesn't mean that if they go, let's say in the next 20 games, they go, I don't know, 15-5. Let's put that out there. 15-5 the next 20 games. I also don't think they're going to make a Nelson Cruz type trade either. I think a 15-5, a really good streak for this team, is not going to change the front office into, oh, we got to go all in, or at least like, let's get a really big piece in. I still feel like if they go into a really good streak in the next 20 games, the best thing that happens is they stay pat. They don't move Brendan Loud. They don't move Randy Arozarena. They don't move Yandy Diaz. They don't move Zach Eflin. Although really, honestly, Zach Eflin, I think you could get something really nice with Zach. With Zach Eflin, I mean, I don't care about the $18 million. I'm not here to save money for Stu Sternberg. So the money aspect for me is, I'm not looking to save money. I'm saying he is a player that could be very interesting for somebody that could need a rotation piece for the playoffs. And if you sell high, what do we want? I said it last week. You need to fix the catching position. Although Rorvet did have a nice little weekend for himself. But, you know, does Zach Eflin get you a piece like that? Probably not by himself. But we'll see. We'll see what this Rays team can do. It was a good road trip, 5-4. You'll take that anytime. You win the last two series, you'll take that anytime. And now they face a Mariners team that hasn't really gone off as expected when you have a drop in Houston, when you have the Texas Rangers not performing like everybody thought they would. And yet the Mariners haven't become the best team in the American League, right? They're not. So we'll see what the Rays can do. They normally don't have very good showings against that team, but that this is another year. So, I'll leave you to it. I'll leave you to Kevin Weiss to get you his big takeaway for the series, for the road trip, and hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of the show. So here is Kevin Weiss.
All right, continuing on with today's Locked On Rays podcast, want to let you know that you need to make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming and shouting. We know about some of the networks that do that. Locked On Sports Today doesn't do that. Locked On Sports Today instead brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So today's episode, Ulises and I splitting up the workload, splitting up the duty here, sort of like the Rays do, 5 and dive, and then we go to the relief corps. I guess I'm the relief corps on today's episode. Little inside baseball. So over the weekend on Sunday, the reason why we are splitting up this episode, I went down to Miami for the first time ever and got to see the spectacle of where the Marlins play, Lone Depot Ballpark, and it made me jealous and what could be of a future Tampa Bay Rays stadium. It was enclosed, of course, as you need to be in Florida. Parking garage, literally adjacent right next to the stadium. Do not have to walk very far at all from getting to the garage into the ballpark. As always, the concessions are expensive, but it was a really neat experience to check out the Marlins playing the Seattle Mariners. Actually, that's who the Rays are going to face this week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And just some of the additions and frills that they have in that facility. They've got a museum. They've got a bobblehead museum. What I found really to be cool was you have a good view of the game no matter where you're at, whether you're getting concessions, whether you're walking around the promenade. There is a view of the game from pretty much everywhere. So you don't have to step away and feel like you're missing the action. You're actually, ordering a drink, ordering some food, talking with friends, and you can still watch the ball game from multiple angles and spots. So I think that was a really cool feature, which I'm sure that the Rays will implement. So just wanted to put that out there, and good weekend overall for your Tampa Bay Rays. Always nice to get a road series win against not a bad team, not a terrible team by any means. The Pittsburgh Pirates, hovering around 500. They've got a couple big name starters, as we know about. Of certainly Paul Skeens is one of them, among others. And I'm sure Ulises hit on this, but an amazing, amazing weekend from Josh Lowe. He is heating up at the right moment, at the right time for a team that is still in limbo mode of, are you going to really go for it and compete for a playoff spot? Are you going to make an addition or two at the trade deadline? And it is imperative for Josh Lowe and others to perform like he's performing right now. And it's been a perfect storm because he's doing well. Randy's doing well. Yandy's doing well. Brandon Lau was doing well before he has the broken foot issue that he is dealing with at the moment. But if you look at it, I'm sure Ulises ran through the numbers of what Josh Lowe put forth over the weekend and what he's done since returning from his own oblique injury. But for example, Randy, his last 15 games, he's got a 261 average, 457 slug. Yandy, 379 average, 515 slug. He's almost, if you look at his overall numbers right now, they're starting to look like what he's more or less average for his career. And then Brandon Lau had a last 15 games, 255 average, 509 slug. But I want to continue to hone in on Josh Lowe for a moment. He is so good. And before it's all said and done, however much longer he's going to be in a Rays uniform, I believe he is arbitration eligible in 2026 and will be a free agent in 2029. Luckily, he is not represented by Scott Boras, so maybe the Rays have something to consider and think about with. Is he one of the faces of the franchise? Is he a guy that we want to extend and keep around as we move on inevitably from Yandy Diaz and Brandon Lau and Randy Arozarena? Is Josh Lowe going to be a poster child, a figurehead for this organization going forward? He certainly has the ability at the plate with his legs in the field. And I was just so impressed and amazed by what he did over the weekend and really the last couple of series as well. You look what he did against the Twins and the Cubs. There is really no pitch that he can't handle and do damage or do something with. Change up, sweeper, down in the zone, he can get a base hit out of it. 99 fastball, inside, he can adjust his body, make an inside-outside swing, and push it the other way. Pitch down and in the wheelhouse, he can pull it up the line for a double or an extra base hit, whatever it may be. And his power is really starting to elevate because, you know, he had the 2 home run game on Friday, and those weren't cheapies. I mean, you're talking about left center, 400 feet, 110 feet. The launch angle and the barrel is really at a perfect moment for him. He is really driving the ball like you need to be able to drive it. And his 2-strike approach and plate coverage has really shown out in a good way. Pitch way outside, just stick the bat head out and get something doing. And even with his legs, we've seen some things going on. Really, maybe not quite as aggressive as a Jose Caballero, but really being dutiful about picking his spots. For example, you have a pitcher, he's expected to throw a breaking ball, he's got a slow delivery. Here's my time to move from first or second and being successful at it. And like we saw last year, we're starting to see it this year as he's heating up. It doesn't matter if it's a fastball. It doesn't matter if it's an off speed. It doesn't matter if it's a breaking ball. He is able to do consistent damage. So when it's all said and done, I believe, hot take here, not to, I guess I'm being a little bit jestful about this. I will not be surprised in the least if he is named to an all-star game in a Rays uniform when it's all said and done. Not this year, of course, but 2025, I'm looking for a huge year from him. And he's going to need to be the guy that, like I mentioned, if the Rays want to talk extension or just keep rolling out the arbitration numbers for him, he should and has to be a focal point for this team. And I think he's one of those guys. I know that there's been talk about, since KK left, since Manny Margot has left, there's been a little bit of a void in the locker room, in the clubhouse. Who's going to be that guy to step up and bang the drum? I think Josh Lowe can matriculate into that role, and we've seen bits and pieces of that over time, where he's not afraid of media attention, and he's not afraid of the spotlight. And I think that'll be important when guys like Xavier Isaac get the call, Junior Caminero gets the call, Carson Williams gets the call, Curtis Mead, depending on how he does, Jonathan Aranda, depending how he does. So I think he will have to be a guy that leads that next wave, next core going forward. And hopefully he's able to keep it up, because you need your best hitters to perform like this at a critical juncture in the season. It's all coming together. And I don't think it's any by mistake of you have guys healthy in the lineup and they can protect and bounce off of each other. I mean, it's harder for Randy or Yandy to be as productive when Brandon Lau or Josh Lowe is out of the lineup and vice versa. So just overall solid weekend. And keep it going. That's what we need. We need more offensive outburst or winning close games aside. You like to see the Rays every once in a while put a 7 spot, a 9 spot, a 10 spot, and we're starting to see a little bit of that, this team breaking out, and they go on another good run, home series, whatever it is, maybe they get to 500 or above 500. All right, we have more to discuss on this front, but first we have to tell you about SupplyHouse. House. That is very important, folks. And you need to get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades. That is SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Well, you can get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. That's what I really like about it. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. So don't waste any time here, okay? Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. All right, as I was mentioning, wouldn't be surprised if Josh Lowe makes an all-star appearance within the next coming years. I'm circling 2025 on the board, assuming he's able to stay healthy. And, you know, by the time next all-star break rolls around, he's played 70, 75, 80 games. And, you know, that's also going to be the question too, is how often or do the Rays ever decide to deploy him against lefties if he is heating up like he is right now? And also on the all-star front, we know that h-vac Paredes is really the one and only choice for the Rays this year. And maybe it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise that, of course, thou who shall not be named is no longer in the picture, but Randy and Yandy, who made last year's all-star break and maybe had a little bit of a slowdown, definitely Randy in July and going towards the end of the year, ran out of steam. Maybe it is good for them that they don't get selected or don't go and partake in the all-star festivities. It's just a chance to refresh, relax, get your mind right, heal, get a couple days off. Don't worry about all the obligations because, I mean, going to that all-star game is work. There's a lot that comes with it, and you don't really get that downtime that you need in between a 162 game season that also includes spring training, that also includes the playoffs, that also includes a ton of travel. So it really should be a time to quote unquote lick your wounds and get back ready for the late season push and the dog days of summer in August. So, and maybe it's a little bit of a motivating factor for them next year of, hey, I didn't have it this first half of the season. I'm really going to battle and fight for it in 2025 because I want to be an all-star again. Of course, you know, I'm sure there's some incentives and ties and bonuses tied with being named an all-star, but maybe it's something that they can look toward and work harder for the ensuing years. Now, whether they're on the Rays or not, that is a looming question that I don't really feel like getting too much into right now. But what I will get into is the Rays, just a team that I watched yesterday, facing the Seattle Mariners, who are doing well this season, 45-35. And if I had to guess, probably going to be some low-scoring affairs. You might want to take the under on FanDuel or PrizePicks based on, well, the offense of the Mariners. Their starting lineup that I saw against the Marlins, it was rough. You had J.P. Crawford with a 657 OPS, Jose Rojas, he was doing okay, 723 OPS. Julio Rodriguez, 654 OPS. Somebody named Dominic Canzone, never heard of him. He was batting cleanup. He's actually doing okay this year. Ty France, Luke Raley, who's been really, really solid. In fact, he had a massive, massive shot the other way in the game that I watched yesterday at Lone Depot Park. But basically, in summary, there is not a guy in the Mariners that has an OPS above 800. I'm seeing a lot of low 600s, mid 650s in some low 700s. So that's a team that Taj Bradley, Zach Littell, Ryan Pepio, hopefully you can take advantage and have a good outing, quality start, and played enough runs across to get a series win. Now the pitching is a little bit of a different story. They have the 7th best team ERA in baseball, and that's where I mentioned the pitching matchups. We'll have Brian Wu, we'll have Luis Castillo, and we'll have George Kirby, and they're all doing really well this season. But you hope that the Rays can keep it up and keep going forward. But it's funny because I saw the Mariners-Marlins game on Sunday, and I think the Marlins were up, man, they got up quick and early, 5-0, 6-0. And I guess that's maybe what you have to do against the Mariners is attack them early, score a couple runs in the first couple innings, and then take it from there. And having the Mariners try to play catch up will be a difficult job. And then you also don't want these starters, Wu, Castillo, and Kirby, getting into such a groove early on, and then they blank the Rays offense. So I think, if there's a key to the game or a key to the series, it's get on them early, attack early, first pitch fastball, try to do some damage with it. Because the Marlins, for their part, and they're not a good team this year by any means, but Nick Gordon hit a shot. I think Jesus Sanchez hit a shot, and they did it early. And I think that's what the Rays are going to have to do. So yeah, we have that coming up over the next couple of days. Although it's funny, past history, Mariners Rays, I don't know how to explain it, but the Mariners historically, the last couple years have, done pretty well against the Rays, even when the Mariners weren't so good. It may have just been a case of the Rays playing down to the competition and not showing up or coming back after a long road trip. And that's what you don't want if you're the Rays. I mean, you come home with a win on Sunday, a series win overall. You don't want to have that lull going into Monday night. So it remains to be seen what happens there. Before we wrap up, just want to mention a couple of comments from our listeners out there. We put it out on social media. The question, what's your big takeaway from the Rays Road Series win against the Pirates? Luke Williamson says, my biggest takeaway is while we look forward to Junior, Carson, etc., Josh Lowe, that is one of the tent poles needed for this team to support the future for years to come. Agree 100%. David Lopez says they are capable of playing so much better than they have shown. I would also agree with that. Eli says we are back, baby. Let's give that a little bit more time. Ray Kennedy says, my takeaway, this team can still be so much fun to watch. Even in a down year, this organization knows how to build them. Ant says, Josh Lowe is so back. June says, Yandy is looking good. Randy continuing to get hot. Josh Lowe going deep. Overall, pretty good road trip with the way it started. Roman Rodriguez says, just like the season, enough annoying progress that keeps me painfully optimistic. Yeah, that's the thing is, it's a step forward, 2 steps back. Hopefully, the Rays can build off this. It's a long season, though. And you just have to find your way into the playoffs with the expansion of that. And I remain hopeful that the Rays can find a way to come together, especially as some of the injured pitchers, Boz, for example, should be back at some point. Springs, for example, should be back at some point. So we have some building blocks that we can be positive about for sure. And then Kayla says Rortvet might be back. Yeah, it's nice I know that Rortvet, really the entire catching core, hasn't shown much this season, but for a guy that was signed, traded for out of nowhere, he has really been a nice addition. And I think, like Evan Klosky said on a previous edition of the pod, that Rortvet really isn't and really shouldn't be a number one catcher, but he could make a really, really good backup catcher. And I think that's the thing that the Rays are still fighting and trying to figure out is who's going to be that preeminent catcher that you can rely upon for 100, 110, 115 games per season. Who's our Adley Rutschman? Who's our Contreras? Might be a while to find a guy like that, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say there. All right. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate the Rays taking care of some business there, and hopefully they keep it up. In the meantime, hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you maybe together, Ulises and I, on Tuesday.